when, look at Lao Tzu's swordsmanship for New Year's greetings. Happy New Year, eldest brother and sister-in-law. Damn, this difficulty is too unfriendly. In the room lit by energy-saving lamps, the young man sitting in front of the computer desk looked at the protagonist who was killed by the fog demon on the computer with a frown, and scratched his hair. As a newcomer who just joined Steam, after being introduced to the Witcher 3 game by his friend Amway, Xiaoyu started his own quint. No, it was a journey of hunting demons, but as a newcomer after the cuteness of the large-scale single-player game and the naked handicap, I chose the difficulty of the game without regrets. Forget it, take a rest. Squeak. Xiaoyu stood up, the wooden stool legs rubbed against the floor making a slightly harsh sound. Xiaoyu, who walked to the bathroom, washed her face, and went back to her bedroom to check the guide on The Witcher 3. Puff lying upright on the bed, she took out her mobile phone. Let me see. Xiaoyu squinted and opened the web page. Ah, hot. Suddenly, Xiaoyu felt that her phone was getting hotter and hotter, and before she could react, it exploded with a sound of ping. In the light of the explosion, 3 beep signs could be vaguely seen. The 3 beeps will no longer be needed after labor and management. Xiaoyu muttered to himself before losing consciousness. Who is your father? 1. The fallen nobles. 2. Traveling merchant. 3. Veteran. 4. Hunter. 5. Nomads. 6. Thieves. In the quiet and dark space, Xiaoyu heard some voices, struggling to stand up, but was horrified to find that he could not feel the existence of his body. What's going on? Xiaoyu was a little scared, but couldn't make any sound. If Xiaoyu had a body at this time, he would have been sweating. After struggling for half an hour to no avail, Xiaoyu also calmed down. At this time, Xiaoyu heard that unfamiliar voice again. Voice operation failed, turned into a window to the soul. Converting. May I ask who your father is? 1. The fallen nobles. 2. Traveling merchant. 3. Veteran. 4. Hunter. 5. Nomads. 6. Thieves. Xiaoyu was stunned when she had no eyes but could see the old parchment-like picture that suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. This is the initial page of Mount and Blade. Xiaoyu has a question in her heart. Before he had time to think more, it seemed that the voice resounding in Xiaoyu's soul made him make a choice as soon as possible. Hey, who are you? Where am I? What's wrong with me? Xiaoyu asked urgently from the bottom of her heart. The voice did not pay attention to Xiaoyu, but instead said, since the host has not responded, the system defaults to choose 1, the fallen noble. Start the second choice. How did you spend your boyhood? 1. Noble servant. 2. The apprentice of the craftsman. 3. The urchin on the street. 4. The children on the grassland. 5. The helper of the merchant. Xiaoyu now understands that no matter how much he asks, there will be no result, so after forcing himself to calm down, he starts to think. Obviously this is the rhythm that I want to cross, and Goldfinger can roughly see a little clue. This is the initial page of Mount and Blade, and according to the route I choose, it will give me a corresponding strengthening direction. It's been a long time since I played and I almost forgot. Wait, I didn't check the guide for The Witcher 3. Cough cough. Please choose the host as soon as possible. OK Xiaoyu looked resentful, if there is still a face. I choose, 3, the urchin on the street. Your adult life is 1. The knights are slaves. 2. The bard. 3. The apprentice. 4. The vendor. 5. The blacksmith. 6. Poachers. I choose, 3. Apprentice. Why did you come to Calder Continent? 1. The desire for power. 2. Was driven out by the family. 3. The love of adventure. 4. Personal grudges. 5. Since you are a single dog, it is not optional. Xiaoyu looked at the options and felt that the system made sense for a while. I really want to flip the table, quit. I choose 1. Xiaoyu gritted his teeth. If there are any. The attribute selection is complete. Please enter your name, prompt. The continent you are going to has the power of sword and magic. A reasonable name can make you have a better gaming experience. Gerald Xia. Who told me to just play The Witcher 3? The incompetent Xiaoyu, Gerald is a little righteous. Your properties are currently as follows. Xiaoyu saw the screen turn. Name, Gerald Xia. Grade 1. Experience, 0/100 Strength, 6, Initial Character 5 plus Gender Male 1 Agility, 7, Initial Character 5 plus Urchin on the Street 1 plus Desire for Power 1 Intelligence, 8, Initial Character 4 plus Fallen Noble 1 plus Apprentice 2 plus Desire for Power 1 Charm, 8, Initial Character 5 plus Gender 1 plus Fallen Noble 2 Skills, Iron Bone 0, Strong Strike 0, Strong Throw 0, Strong Bow 0, Shield Defense 0, Weapon Mastery 0, Run 0, Ride 0, Mount Shooting 0, Plunder 0, Coach 0, Tactic 0, Track 0, Guide 0, Scouting 0, Item Management 0, First Aid 0, Healing 0, Surgery 0, Engineering 0, Persuasion 0, Trading 0, Commander 0, Captive Management 0 Weapon Proficiency, 0 for one-handed weapons, 0 for two-handed weapons, 0 for pole arms, 0 for bows and arrows, 0 for crossbow bolts, 0 for throwing free attribute points, 4 remaining skill points, 10, intelligence increases by 8 points and increases by 2 per level remaining weapon proficiency, 50, 10 entry, 100 master, 200 master, 300 master, 400 legend, 500 myth. Please add in. Gerald thought about it and said, add 1 point to intelligence and charm, and 2 points to strength. Immediately, Charlotte's attributes were changed to, strength 8, agility 7, wisdom charm are all 9 points, and skill points have also increased a little to 11 due to intelligence. But the initial skills and weapon mastery are both 0. I didn't expect that. Gerald was a little surprised. After thinking about it, he said, 3 points of commander, each point of charm skill increases the number of troops by 5 and reduces the maintenance cost by 5%. 2 points of weapon mastery, each point of agility skill increases weapon proficiency caps by 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 and the upper limit of weapon mastery level is 5. 2 strong hits, strength skills increase melee damage by 8% per point. 2 points of strong bow, strength skill increases bow arrow damage by 8% per point. 2 points of shield defense, each point increases the effective defense by 5%. Weapon proficiency 40 points, one-handed weapons 10 points bolts. Having said so much in one breath, after Gerald raised the one-handed weapon and crossbow bolt to the entry level, the system's voice sounded again, the initial stage is complete, start delivering. 10. 9. Hey, you haven't told me what's going on. 7. Big Brother system. Uncle. Ancestor. 4. Come on. You are cruel. 1. I wish you a pleasant journey. Then Gerald's eyes darkened and he lost consciousness. Hey, I finally sent it away, Wanda Zilluo, Goldfinger's express delivery was wrong. It seems to have taken something from the next door. Forget it, about the system, our side the promise will never go wrong, the most is the test, the task is completed, run away for collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum, hungry and hungry. 2. Full name of chapter, according to effective statistics, 80% of the protagonists will encounter it. The public enemy of travelers. Brush, brush. In the dark and silent forest, a fierce chase begins, the arrival of spring, the animals all. Why are you still chasing me? Neurosis. Ow! With a bitter face, Gerald heard the persevering wolf howling behind him, and continued to run forward through the surrounding trees. I said, "Big brother, can you stop being so persistent? I'm so in no hurry to get the syrup." In the woods, a wild wolf with twisted front legs chased Gerald. He had some recent wounds on his body, and 3 green eyes with 3 scratches on his left eye revealed 3 words, MMP, I am so hungry, hungry, very hungry. 3 words are fine. Hoo. The wild wolf's breathing is a little heavy. It used to be an excellent alpha wolf, leading its own group to smash the entire maple leaf forest, but it is old, and it has just been driven out of the group leader position by the new alpha wolf. It has not eaten for 4 days. Now, it's hungry, otherwise it wouldn't be chasing Gerald for so long. This is its only chance. I said, "Big brother, don't blame me for being ruthless when you are chasing." Ouch! Looking at the wild wolf who chased him for a few minutes, Gerald knew that he would definitely lose if he ran on, because Gerald already felt that he was tired. Continuing to run a few steps forward, he came to a relatively open place. Gerald rolled off the hunting crossbow behind him and took a standard kneeling shooting position. He raised the hunting crossbow and aimed at the wild wolf that was still chasing him. These knowledge all come from the entry-level proficiency of crossbow bolt weapons. Although Gerald will not become an instant crossbow master, he has mastered some basic shooting postures and weapon maintenance. God bless middle Gerald drank quietly. Gerald, who didn't quite believe in his shooting skills, waited for the wild wolf to approach him at a distance of nearly 8.9 meters before pulling the trigger. Bounce! There was a crisp sound from the hunting crossbow, and the arrow shot straight out. Then a miserable howl sounded. Gerald successfully killed a ghost at a distance of 800 meters, bah, maybe it was God's blessing that the crossbow hit the right eye of the wolf, right? Although the eye was not penetrated very deeply, it was enough to make the wolf blind, and the left eye was a little unclear because of the injury, but the wolf was still extremely frustrated with vision. Smell gritted his teeth and continued to pounce on Gerald, because this was his last hope. On the other side, Gerald lost his hunting crossbow as early as the moment the arrow was fired. He knew that the distance of 8 meters would not give him enough time to wind the second arrow. He took the damaged log shield from behind and buckled it on his left hand. He took out the rusty iron sword and galloped away in the direction of the wolf. The bonus of attributes allowed him to gain a power far beyond his previous weakness. Kill! Gerald roared in a low voice and slayed the wolf. After all, he was someone who died once, so it was a bit scary to be ruthless. Our roar! The distance between one person and one wolf is getting closer and closer. Bang! Gerald took the lead and shot the wild wolf with his shield. The target was the crossbow arrow still hanging in his eye socket. Head off! Bang! The shield slapped the wild wolf's head fiercely, but it didn't hit the position Gerald wanted. The wild wolf tilted his head in time, and the shield was only slapped near the wild wolf's left eye. The smashed wild wolf rushed down and waved his claws, wanting to leave a deep wound on Gerald's chest, but fortunately he was stopped by the armor, and Gerald seized the opportunity of the wild wolf to deflect his body. A sword slashed on the waist of the wild wolf, the two sides fought, the wolf's bite and claws attacked, and Gerald's sword smashed the shield. Finally, in the strange position of a wolf upper man down, the battle was over. Gerald's shield withstood the bite of the wolf's kiss. The sword had been inserted into the wolf's chest. Gerald was panting violently. After being addicted to the game every day, after this desperate struggle, he was able to climb into it. Warrior's Gate. The wild wolf, subway, old man, mobile phone, lying on Gerald's body gradually lost its vitality. With the only left eye that could not see clearly, it looked at the maple leaf forest at dusk. Here is where it once fought. The place to live, this is the place where it was born and raised, it recalled that it once ran under the dusk of the maple leaf forest, that it is really its lost youth, and its slow breathing has stopped. Ding! The battle is over. Kill the leader level wolf to gain experience 10, crossbow bolt difficulty shooting 2.5 to obtain crossbow bolt proficiency 5, one-handed weapon proficiency 10, you gain reputation 2 after a close battle. The difficulty of the game is really unfriendly. Pushing away the heavy wolf corpse on his body, Gerald struggled to stand up with a grimacing face. Hey, it hurts, he's. The waist is broken, the waist is broken. He stood up, shook his head, looked at the wild wolf and said, you are also a booze in the novice village of the heavens, 8 out of 10 killed you, rest in peace. It's income backpack. The sturdy leather armor was already in pieces. Gerald put the sword and shield on his back again, walked to the position where he put down the hunting crossbow, picked it up and wounded it, clapped his hands, and said, this new be the task, how to complete it, where can I find a gathering place for humans? Recalling the time when he was first sent to this continent, Gerald gnashed his teeth. When it was just delivered to Calder continent half a day ago, you read www.yuyugonshu.com. He was still very excited. After all, not everyone can travel through this kind of thing, but Gerald couldn't get excited when he saw the location where he was delivered, the forest, a large maple leaf forest. You're killing me. Did you send me to the wilderness to prepare me? I'm not Lord Bay. It's not that everything tastes good like chicken. Gerald put one hand on his hip and one finger on the other. He cursed at the sky. System self-check. Ding, the system is turned on, this delivery is complete, and the novice task is announced, find any gathering place of humans within 24 hours from now, reward, 30 experience, Wikia Militia +1. Gerald, who was scolding half-paid, stopped for a while when he heard the cold and stiff voice of the system. Rubbing his hands back and forth, with a smirk on his face, haha, golden finger, I want God to block and kill God, and Buddha to block and kill Buddha, haha, I want this day, but I can't cover my eyes. I want this, the building crooked in a moment of excitement, cough cough. Rubbing his hands, Gerald smiled and said, let me see the army page. After speaking, Gerald's familiar interface appeared on his retina. The army. Number of troops, 0/41, characters own 17, charisma 9, commander 15, prisoner, 0/5, character comes with 5, each point of prisoner management +5. Note, the soldiers you recruited will never betray your high morale unless they die or are disbanded. This is my decision. And Gerald's 3D stereo image is also presented. Readers and gentlemen are handsome. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum, hungry and hungry. Hee I like this, open the inventory. Gerald said, and then a 20SPACE backpack appeared in his mind. In the inventory was a coin-sized medal, a few pieces of equipment, a book, and a basket. Salted fish, Gerald looked. Noble medal, this is the Lord's medal issued by the Rika kingdom. Under the notarization of God, he can prove your noble bloodline. Basket of salted fish, well, just a basket of salted fish. Note, it's very salty. Kingshu, put it in the backpack column, it will produce the effect of healing +1, from the apprentice option, healing, each point increases the recovery speed of all members. Weak leather armor, +8 defense, providing some protection. Hemp pants, +1 defense, better than nothing. Fur boots, +1 defense. Broken log shield, +6 defense, it's strong, but it's missing a corner. The so-called ground defense, you should take it as a level of endurance. Hunting crossbow, 10 penetration, has a certain lethality, A rusty sword, 3 degrees of sharpness, although not as sharp as a kitchen knife, it has unique lethality. Tetanus sword? Hurry up and sharpen it, the shame of the sword crossbow, 8 sharpness, with sharp arrows, it's not good to be stuck by this thing. Gerald looked at the introduction of various items with a black line on his face. He always felt like he was being molested. The corners of his mouth twitched, and he said softly, equipment. About 1.8 meters tall, with thick black hair tied behind his head, strong and slender streamlined muscles, in a brown leather armor, pure fur boots, and a pair of grey hemp trousers, sword, shield, and crossbow stuck on the back on the top, a handsome figure appeared in the maple leaf forest. Then, you know, he was chased by wild wolves. Probably due to having the same good looks as the reader's gentleman evokes natural jealousy. After the battle, Gerald leaned against the tree to rest temporarily, feeling a heat flow in his body gently flowing around the wound. Gerald estimated that it was from a little healing ability. After a short rest, Gerald stood. Get up, it's time to go. When Gerald was resting, he had already looked around, and when he was chased by the wild wolf, he accidentally bumped into it. He had come to the edge of the maple leaf forest. Looking far away, he could vaguely see the dirt road that the pedestrians came out of. Gerald was a little happy. Having a path means someone is there, someone means he can complete his novice task, experience is second, and the most important thing is the VCA militia from the game. A loyal soldier with an independent personality but completely obedient to him. Walking out of the maple leaf forest, Gerald walked in the direction where the dirt road extended. Looking back, he looked at the maple leaf forest. The forest was full of greenery. Along the way, I used a crossbow to get rid of a few silly rabbits foraging, and I gained a few points of experience, which also dispelled Gerald's idea of relying on poultry to upgrade. I walked along the way and looked at the beautiful scenery along the way, breathing without adulteration. The fresh air of the exhaust, Gerald thought maybe it was a good thing to live in such a world. After walking for nearly an hour, the sky was getting dark. Finally, Gerald saw the smoke rising in front of him. After walking in that direction for a few minutes, a clear stream appeared in front of Gerald. A wooden bridge that is 1.5 meters wide and 2 meters long. The wooden bridge has no handguards. The wooden bridge used to be Gerald's goal. It is a village surrounded by fences. The village is about 50 meters away from the wooden bridge. Through the gap between the fences, you can still see the villagers talking. Ding novice task completed, gain experience 30, Wikia militia +1, whether to take it out no. Gerald looked at his 41/100 experience points. He didn't take out the soldiers for the time being. He strode in the direction he came from. After walking for a few minutes, he looked around cautiously. Under a big tree. Take it out. Gerald whispered. A figure ran out of the woods in the distance. My lord, the Vikia militia is reporting to you. The Vikia militiaman in plain clothes knelt down on one knee and looked at Gerald with joy. Gerald looked at the Vikia militia and asked, do you remember where you came from? The lord, I remember, my subordinate is from a village near Kulao. Under the witness of glory, I shall swear my allegiance to the lord. Gerald looked at the Vikia militia. Very well, you are never allowed to tell others about your origins. Understood, my lord. Get up, by the way, carry this and follow me to the village ahead. With that said, Gerald took out the wolf's body and the hare's body from the inventory, and carried the hare by himself. The Vikia militia he took the wolf's body and followed Gerald towards the village. Entering the village, Gerald asked passers-by about the location of the hotel, and then walked towards the hotel. The village is not very big. After walking for a while, he saw the wooden tree tavern mentioned by the villagers. This is for some passers-by. The place where the merchants and some mercenaries on missions rest, and of course the villagers also drink and chat here. Pushing the door and entering, there were not many people in the tavern at this time. There were a few people sitting here and there drinking and chatting. Gerald didn't care about it. He went straight to the counter and asked the tavern owner, Boss, is the body of the wild wolf collected? There are also 2 hares. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Come on, come and show me. The tavern owner, who was wiping the wooden wine glass, put down his work and looked up to answer Gerald. This is your first time in West Asia village? Handing a glass of water to Gerald, the tavern owner asked Gerald while examining the corpse of the wolf hare that he had taken from the Vaikya militia. That's right, boss, it's called Xian village? It looks pretty good. Gerald replied while drinking water. Yes, guest, under the management of the great, intelligent and benevolent Lord Harry, West Asia village is a well-known and prosperous village nearby, and half a day's journey east is Rock City. The tavern owner introduced Gerald somewhat proudly. The village. Guest, there's no problem with your prey, I'll probably give you 2 silver coins and 30 copper coins, you see. The tavern owner looked at Gerald after checking. Okay, that's it, by the way, prepare us 2 rooms and dinner to settle accounts together. Gerald didn't know the purchasing power of currency in this world, so he could only ask the tavern owner in this way, and he is also hungry and needs to rest. After all, the injury is not yet neat. No problem, guest. Okay, come on as soon as possible, I'm starving. Okay, here's the money you have left for the guest. Please sit down and wait a moment. After handing over the money, he walked towards the back. He took the coins and counted them. It seemed that the food was still very cheap. A few coppers would be enough to eat. Gerald sat down with the Vaikya militia, and while waiting for the meal to come to the table, he listened to the chatting of the people in the tavern. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum hum hum, hungry and hungry. Have you heard? Several idlers at the next table sat chatting together. Recently, some of the businessmen around have been blocked and robbed. The villagers sitting behind Gerald were chatting with their companions. Gerald pricked up his ears and listened carefully to their conversation. That's right, the merchants nearby don't dare to take this road. They are not a big caravan, they don't even have an escort, they are just 2 or 3 working together to do business. Alas, the world is difficult. Man sighed. Hey, why are you talking so much? It's none of our business. Drink, drink. He raised his glasses and touched them. At this time, the tavern owner came over with a plate. Guest, please take your food slowly. Wait, boss. Gerald stopped the tavern owner who was about to leave. Anything else? Guest. What information do you have, boss, about the robbers who blocked the road? Gerald took out 10 copper coins from his pocket and put them on the table to ask the tavern owner. The tavern owner smiled and put away the copper on the table, and explained to Gerald in a low voice, Guest, you have asked the right person, others may not know who the robbers are, but I can tell you, there is no information around West Asia village that I don't know, but... The tavern owner rubbed his hands and looked at Gerald with a smile. Since that's the case, tell me what you know, the benefits won't be less than you. Gerald took out 10 more coins. Okay, okay. Harry put away the copper coins and whispered, those people are all idle gangsters in the surrounding villages. The leader is called Rayleigh, who used to be a guard for a while. There are about 13 of them. Except for Rayleigh, everyone else is a bankrupt farmer, and they don't have strong fighting ability. If they are robbing, they rely on more people to swarm up. Their hiding place is in the lower reaches of Willow Creek. There is a huge rock, it takes about 2 hours to walk there, their hideout is nearby, there are only so many guests, you can use it slowly. It's so clear, you won't be a gang, right? Gerald was a little puzzled. The hotel owner knew too much. How could that be? In fact, Lord Harry has long wanted to take action against this robber, but recently he encountered a few things that have been put on hold, so the information is so detailed. The hotel owner explained immediately. All right then, thank you. With a wave of his hand, Gerald signaled that Harry could leave. He lowered his head and thought about the information he had bought. The main reason why Gerald stopped Harry to buy information was because he was given a new task by the system after listening to the alcoholic at the table behind him talking about the road blocking and robbery. Mission: a warrior who has not really experienced fighting can't become a real powerhouse. Now, a best whetstone appears in front of you, of course you have to grasp it well. Mission goal: robbery and robbery. Bandit, quest reward, character experience 50, Nord recruit +2, time requirement, 7 days. Equals 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 equals. After staying in the tavern for 3 consecutive days, Gerald's injury finally recovered. Apart from the accommodation and daily meals, Gerald only had 7 copper coins left. The salted fish inside is, that taste, really salty. The moon was about to set. Taking advantage of the moonlight, Gerald and the VCA militia rushed towards the location described by the intelligence. This is actually the result of Gerald's thinking in the past 3 days. There is no way. After all, the number of people has been completely crushed. Only when the robbers are asleep can the surprise attack be won. After all, they are farmers. Maybe at night there will be vigils, but near the early morning, when people are most prone to sleepiness, gangsters without formal training can't stand it. After walking along Willow Creek for a while, he finally saw the stone Harry said, and also found the gathering place of the bandits. He easily bypassed the 2 sleepy night bandits. Gerald watched the dim bonfire radiating light and warmth. Temperature: there are still some stolen goods piled up on the left side of the stone. Several people are sleeping on the blankets lined up next to the goods. Each blanket is only 1 meter apart. Gerald looked carefully and found that there were still 2 people sitting. Falling asleep on the rock, 1, 2, 3. Gerald counted carefully, it was indeed 13 people, and they were the ones sleeping in the middle, the head of Rayleigh, because he was the only one who slept with the sword in his arms. They are getting closer and closer. To be honest, facing the upcoming killing, Gerald's unexpected adaptation may be due to system reasons, or it may be that he is such a person himself. Who cares, it's not bad anyway. Follow me, move lightly. Gerald whispered to the Victoria militia. Understood, my lord. The Victoria militiaman replied in a low voice. Put the hunting crossbow on the ground, and insert 3 or 4 crossbow bolts at the same time. The crossbow bolts were added in Xian village. After carefully remembering this position, Gerald took the sharpened sword and touched the sleeping bandits. The VCA militiaman followed with daggers. The sword slowly smeared a bandit's neck, and covered his mouth and nose with his hands. The bandit twitched and then quieted down. The Wikia militia also touched a bandit. Compared with assassination, his knives are much better than Gerald's swords. Experience +3. 1. Gerald said silently in his heart. Experience +3. 2. Experience +3. The third one. At the same time, he looked at the 3 Vikia militiamen who had also succeeded. The smell of blood was getting stronger and stronger. Speed up. There are enemies. Who? Someone. Hurry up. Hurry up. Just when Gerald was about to attack the 4th person, the man on duty at night realized something was wrong and shouted. The bandit on the stone was suddenly awakened and shouted. Up. Gerald didn't think too much about it. At the moment when the voice sounded, a sword was inserted into the chest of the bandit who had woken up. He didn't care whether the bandit was dead or not, he drew the sword and ran away. Run. Experience +5. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. It looks like the gangster is dead. Shouted to the Vikia militia. Gerald ran towards the position of the crossbow, followed by the VCA militia. At this time, the gangsters got up from the blanket in a panic. When the gangsters all stood up, in just 7 or 8 seconds, Gerald and the two had already run more than 3,40 meters. Don't try to escape. Kill them for me. Riley, the leader of the gang, shouted at Gerald angrily. Chase. Gerald, who was desperately running, came to the position of the hunting crossbow with a sliding shovel, took a long breath and raised the hunting crossbow at the gangsters, held his breath, aimed, shot, and the crossbow bolts flew. Ah! A bandit responded to the ground. Experience +5. 5 more. Experience +3 behind Gerald, the VCA militia had wiped out the 2 bandits on duty at night. Then there are 3 more. Gerald calmly wound up and stared at the bandits who came running. The farmer was just a farmer after all, holding a sickle, a wooden stick, and a dung fork. Rayleigh was equipped with leather armor and an iron sword, and his eyes that were about to burst into flames seemed to smash Gerald to pieces. Bounces another arrow, aimed directly at Rayleigh. Bingo! Unfortunately, he missed the key point. At the critical moment, Rayleigh twisted his body and stabbed the arrow on Rayleigh's right shoulder. It was too late to wind the hunting crossbow. Gerald took his shield, picked up his sword, and shouted to the Victoria militiamen, "Come on! Go and deal with those 2 farmers, and the thief leader will lead me. It's just a fight. I'm happy to accompany you. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum hum hum, hungry and hungry. Follow me, be careful." He whispered to the Victoria militia. "Understood, my lord." Rush! Gerald charged towards Rayleigh like a cheetah, followed by the Victoria militia. Boom! Gerald and Rayleigh began to fight. Gerald took advantage of the charge and slammed into Rayleigh with his left hand against the shield. Rayleigh stumbled, and Gerald seized the opportunity and slashed at Rayleigh's waist with another sword, but the sharpness of the sword was too low. It just cut through Rayleigh's leather armor, but behind Gerald the VCA militia took advantage of the situation and stabbed Rayleigh. "Damn you!" Rayleigh, who was stabbed, was furious. "Go and deal with those farmers, leave it to me here." "Yes, Your Excellency." The Victoria militia who received the order turned to the rest of the bandits. "Suffer it." Choppy. Rayleigh used a military swordsmanship to launch a fierce attack on Gerald. Gerald hurriedly parried with his shield, occasionally slashing a sword or 2. In this way, the 2 sides fought for a few minutes while you came to me. Gradually, Rayleigh began to lose his strength. The 2 wounds on his body kept bleeding, and he felt that he was getting weaker and weaker. It can't be consumed any longer. Rayleigh thought to himself. Gerald became more and more comfortable with his fights. The power-generating skills and some moves given by his one-handed weapon proficiency became more and more skillful. He also noticed Rayleigh's poor state and began to secretly accumulate power, waiting for the opportunity to strike. Fatal. Rayleigh became more and more tired, but Gerald became more and more brave. In panic, Rayleigh blocked with a sword, turned around and wanted to run away. Of course Gerald, who had already prepared for it, would not waste the gauge of an opportunity and slashed at Ray with a sword. Lee's head. This battle is won. The VCA militia won the battle against the 2 bandits. Although they won the prize, they also killed the remaining 2 bandits, and the dust settled. Going forward to check the Victoria militia, and found that there is no other serious problem except for a few injuries, Gerald decided to take a deep breath. Fortunately, there is no physical disability. As long as there is no death and healing, then even major injuries can be saved. With a sigh of relief, Gerald was ready to welcome the arrival of his new partner. A brilliant battle. Your troops have gained 150 experience points. One-handed weapon proficiency +30, crossbow proficiency +30. This is a battle where less wins more. Reputation +50. Congratulations to the master level upgrade. Gain free attribute points. 1. Skill points. 2. Weapon proficiency, 20. Congratulations on your troops that can be upgraded, Wikia Militia. Vicia Militia Advancement Tree, Vicia Infantry, Vicia Guerrilla Shooter. Ding mission completed. Reward, 50 experience, +2 for Nord recruits. Will you receive it? Get Nord recruits. Gerald gave the order with excitement. Just like the Vicia militia, 2 strong men in linen clothes with hatchets on their waists ran to Gerald from a distance. Greetings to you, my lord. The Nord recruit, who was half kneeling on the ground, said at the same time. Get up, pay attention. Never reveal your origins to others. Understood. Your lord. The 2 Nord recruits who were half kneeling on the ground replied at the same time. At this time, the sky began to turn white. Looking at the wounded Vicia militiaman sitting on the ground, Gerald instructed the 2 Nord recruits, well, you go find 2 long straight branches, I will to be a stretcher. Okay. My lord. After instructing the 2 Nord recruits to do their thing, upgrade the Vicia militia. Gerald opened the army interface. The upgrade failed, the fee is insufficient. Upgrading the Vicia infantry requires 3 silver K, without equipment, and the Vicia guerrilla shooter requires 10 silver K, without equipment. The cost of equipment upgrades given by the system has increased tenfold. Gerald frowned. 100 silver coins is equivalent to 10,000 copper coins, which is too big for the game, but thinking about 10,000 copper coins in exchange for a professionally trained and well-armed excellent warrior is still worth it. Not to mention that as long as the experience and money are enough, the speed of forming a strong fighting force will be much faster than others. Forget it, don't think about it, shook his head. Gerald walked over to Rayleigh's body, picked up his sword and looked at it. Iron sword, sharpness 8, this is much stronger than your weapon that is too dull to cut flesh. Gerald hurriedly equipped it, it was much stronger than his polished iron sword. As for the leather armor on Rayleigh, Gerald looked at it, shook his head and said, it's still the case. Come on. The leather armor was already scratched by Gerald's attack, and even Chiu couldn't repair it. I sorted out the equipment and dropped the damaged shield and leather armor. Gerald fought twice. The importance of these 2 pieces of equipment is indescribable, but unfortunately, it is also damaged now. Put on a coat at will, Gerald walked towards the goods next to the stone without looking at them, but swept them all into the inventory for a more intuitive view. Honey times 5 wheat times 10 cotton times 2. The inventory was immediately full, and there were 4 pieces of cotton cloth left on the ground. Gerald tied them with cloth strips and carried them on his back. Returning to the seat beside the Vicia militia, Gerald began to think about the route he should take in the future. Originally, according to the usual player practice, Gerald should take the glamour route, so that he can command more soldiers, but Gerald discovered that survivability is more important now than the commander. After thinking for a long time, I finally decided to put this attribute on the strength. Reading www.uugonshu.com. After adding strength, Gerald instantly felt his body heat up, and his whole body felt like an electric shock. The skill point Gerald thought about when he clicked the attribute points. Add 1 point to each of the strong attack and strong bow, and the weapon proficiency is also added to the one-handed weapon. The one-handed weapon proficiency of 100 makes Gerald felt that he was more at ease with the use of weapons. The situation that he didn't know how to solve before was now very simple. If Rayleigh stood in front of Gerald again, he would have eliminated Rayleigh within 5 moves of me. Sir, we're back, this is the branch you asked for. While Gerald was still obsessed with how to deal with Rayleigh faster, 2 Nord recruits came back, each holding a straight stick in his hand. Gerald stepped forward to take the branches, took off some of the bandits' clothes, and made a simple stretcher. 2 Nord recruits carried the Vicia militiamen, and they carried 4 pieces of cotton cloth on their backs, and started the journey back. When Gerald and his party were about to arrive at West Asia village, Gerald took out the items in the backpack to fight it. At this time, it was already bright, and it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and the 2 Nord recruits were already fast. Exhausted, sweat soaked the clothes made of sackcloth, and it was difficult for them to carry the Wikia militia all the way for nearly a few hours. Near the village of West Asia, I took 2 Nord recruits to the Wood Tree Tavern. Bang! Gerald pushed open the door of the tavern and greeted the boss loudly, "Boss, come and see if you can accept these things." The exhausted Gerald didn't bother to go to other villages to compare prices, so he sold everything here. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum hum hum, hungry and hungry. Bang! Gerald put the things on Harry's counter, wiped the sweat from his head and said, "Boss, let's see if you can accept these things, and hurry up and bring me 3 glasses of ale, me and my lads are exhausted." Gerald, who put down his things, greeted the 2 Nord recruits to put down the Vaikya militia, and helped the Vaikya militia to sit down, while shouting at the innkeeper. "Take it, why don't you take it, I want everything here." The innkeeper who hurriedly brought the ale answered Gerald. Let me see ha, 2 jars of honey, whether it is made into mead or sold honey water, the sales here will not be too bad, oh and good these are the favorites of the nobles, so Gerald, I will give you 13 per jar of honey, and the cotton is 9 silver, what do you think?" Gerald, who had known the boss for a long time while recovering from his injury, of course had no problem. He took a sip of wine and waved his hand. "Oh dear Gerald, look at what you said, I'm the kind of person who would deceive my friends." The innkeeper smiled and handed Gerald the 62 silver coins and asked, Did you get rid of Rayleigh's group?" "Of course, you see this is Rayleigh's sword." Gerald squinted his eyes and looked at Harry lazily and replied, passing the iron sword up, taking a sip of wine, saying the wine is good, similar to the taste of beer. "It is indeed Rayleigh's saber. There is a red mark on the hilt. I sold this sword to him at the beginning." The boss looked at the iron sword and pointed to the position of the hilt. Gerald looked at it, there was indeed a red mark, and suddenly he asked with interest, "I said, boss, you do all kinds of business here, it's food, drink, and fur, now you tell me you also sell weapons? This is not like an ordinary tavern owner. Tell me what other business you have." "Ha ha ha, dear Gerald, who told you that I'm just a tavern owner? Come, let me introduce myself formally, Harry Manton, the great lion of the Reka Kingdom, Duelist Chi. The elk collar under the rule of King Wei Mates, the legitimate lord of West Asia Village, a village under the Rock City, and the merciful Lord Harry Manton." Harry laughed and answered Gerald. "Haha, don't you think it's a great honor to have a nobleman as a friend?" Harry laughed while looking at Gerald, who was stunned. Gerald said jokingly, "I'm just surprised that a noble man likes to do unexpected things." "I said Harry, you can be a boss, why doesn't your tavern even have a servant, eh? You like serving people so much." Gerald looked at Harry playfully and took a sip of wine. "It's just my hobby. Don't you think it's a great achievement to turn every item into a lovely silver keel? Well, Yin Kideo is quite cute, but compared to doing business, I still think fighting is more fun. Everyone has different hobbies. Just like you like fighting and I like doing business, it's just a hobby." "Ugh, that's what I said." Gerald stood up, stretched his waist and smiled, "Okay, let's not talk about it with you, give me the bow and arrow and quiver, your honorable lord." "Haha, Gerald, it seems that you don't care about my nobility at all." "That's right, I don't care." Gerald waved his hand and pretended to take out the Lord's medal in the inventory from the lining of his clothes and said mockingly at Harry, "Because I am too, haha." Gerald smiled and took his things, motioned for several soldiers to follow him upstairs, leaving Harry alone in the counter in a daze. He went back to the room and sat down, watching several soldiers standing side by side. Gerald opened the army interface and upgraded the Vaikya militia into an unequipped Vaikya guerrilla shooter. Update completed. Expense deduction. After deciding on the options, the Vaikya militia was lost for a moment, but quickly recovered. Although in Gerald's view, the upgrade of the Visaya partisan shooter only took less than a few seconds, but in the memory of the Visaya partisan shooter, it was completed after months or even years of formal training and combat. Gerald handed the armor and quiver that the bow and arrows wore to the Visaya guerrilla shooter. After the upgrade, the injury on the Visaya guerrilla shooter also slightly recovered, and respectfully greeted Gerald. "Thank you, sir." Gerald waved his hand. "Go and rest, you guys live in one room, we'll rest here for 3 days. "Yes, my lord." ×3 Seeing the three of them go out, Gerald went to the bed and lay down. "System, I want to see the advanced tree of the troops. Existing advanced map of arms unknown element bonus, please rise to the top class and explore by yourself. It's different from the game, isn't it? I'll watch it after I level up. I'll know when I level up. I just want to sleep now, I'm sleepy." Gerald got up from his chair and stretched out. Lazy waste, fell asleep on the bed. As it was approaching evening, Gerald got up, took out the remaining jars of honey and went downstairs, and on the stairs he saw 2 Nord recruits sitting in their seats drinking and chatting. Seeing Gerald coming down the stairs, he immediately stood up and bowed his head in a respectful greeting. "Sir. Sit down, don't worry about me." Gerald waved his hand, motioning them to continue. Went to Harry's counter and said, "Harry here for business." He put down the 3 jars of honey and patted the counter to greet Harry. Come on, come on." Then he saw Harry walking out of the kitchen, muttering something. "You reading www.yuyugonshu.com? Why, it looks like you have something to do." Gerald asked. "It's okay, what do you want, nobleman yo? You're kidding me, aren't you?" "How dare I, esteemed nobleman?" Harry smiled strangely, biting the pronunciation of the word noble very hard. Okay, I won't talk to you, you can quickly count the money for me." Gerald pointed to honey. 3 jars of honey, it's the same as yesterday, I'll give you 39 silvers in total." As he spoke, he took out silvers and gave them to Gerald. Gerald didn't reach out to take Yinky, and said, "Don't rush me first, I need a shield, a set of leather armor, and a bow and quiver. Calculate how much I need to make up." Oh, Harry glanced at Gerald, took out the account book and checked it, turned a few pages and said, "For leather armor, there is a set of high-quality goods, but it costs 20 silver K, and you need an iron shield. Or wood. Wooden, relatively light. Then this oak shield is good enough, and it's covered with 2 layers of cowhide. It will charge you 8 silver K, and a short bow and 36 quivers will charge you 22 silver K." Harry calculated, "You still need give me 11 silver coins, what do you think?" Gerald thought for a while, then took out 11 silver coins from his pocket and gave it to Harry and asked, "Okay, how long will it take me to get it?" "Soon, my friend, it's here, wait for me for a while, please have a glass of wine, haha." Harry was very happy, smiled and poured a glass of wine for Gerald, then went to get Gerald specially purchased equipment to go. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hungry and hungry. Gerald was drinking and checked the status of the Visaya guerrilla shooter through the army interface, and then turned his attention to the 2 Nord recruits, and found that they had begun to break their arms, and there were a few people around him who were joking and watching the fun. The idle man smiled, and suddenly felt very interesting. After drinking and waiting for a while, Harry finally came. He panted and said, "Gerald, look, this is the equipment you want." He took a few breaths and said, Look. Hunter leather armor, defense 18, can effectively defend against the bite of prey, sturdy oak bark shield 20, 2 layers of cowhide are added to the original defense, which is strong and durable, short bow, penetrating power 16, within a range of 80 meters, its power can be maximized, cone arrow, sharpness 9, with the slight armor-piercing ability. Gerald looked at the attributes of each piece of equipment, and it was indeed quite good. He replied with satisfaction, "Not bad, quite satisfied. By the way, get me some pots and pans. I plan to leave in a few days." After putting on the purchased equipment, Gerald said to Harry, "This is going away. Yeah, there's nothing to make money around, so I can't just sit back and eat with the rest of the silver." In fact, Gerald couldn't do anything about it. Thinking about it, Gerald and the Vaikya militia were alone in 3 days. I used nearly 5 yinks. If the 5 yinks are a normal family of 3, they can maintain a month's living expenses, not to mention the 2 new Nord recruits. Actually, I really have a mission I want to ask you. I have a mission, can you take it? Harry stopped and looked at Gerald. Oh, you can talk about it. It's like this. Harry sorted out his thoughts. My scout detected a wolf pack from the outside world and came to the maple leaf forest. Recently, the wolves in the maple leaf forest have been a little disturbed, and the hunters and lumberjacks in the village have been injured several times. 1. So. Haley paused, looked at Gerald and said, So you want me to hunt those wolves? With all due respect, Harry, as a lord, I don't believe that your people can't solve these things. Gerald interrupted Harry before he could finish. Harry frowned and looked at Gerald and said in a low voice, I didn't want to say that, Gerald. Listen, Gerald, I'm in trouble. My father, Lexig Manton, the Lord of Rock City, the Earl of the Great Rika Kingdom, is at war with Earl Assassin Dre. Almost all of my 6 knights and 60 infantry regiments have been transferred away, and now my territory is extremely empty. Remove your troops. I think a dignified count can easily raise you to a higher position, and leave you a territory like this. Gerald looked at Harry with some doubts. Harry, who heard such a question, lowered his head. Gerald couldn't see his eyes, only Harry's hands clenched tightly on the counter. Harry, are you all right? Gerald looked at Harry. It's okay. Harry hesitated. There was silence in the tavern for a moment. Gerald made a look, and the 2 Nord recruits saw that Gerald and Harry had something to say and also wisely chased away the idlers who were drinking, and began to guard at the entrance of the tavern. After a while, Harry seemed to be a lot more relaxed because of no one's relationship, and his heart seemed to be relieved, and he said to Gerald, My father doesn't like me, I'm just an illegitimate child. My mother, Ina, she became pregnant with me after the banquet. She was originally just the daughter of a businessman who was invited to the banquet, but her father did not want to marry her, so her mother left. After my mother came home, she gave birth to me, and I spent my time there. For 4 years, my mother treated me very well and loved me very much. She taught me how to do business every day, but I could see that my mother was not happy and sometimes cried secretly. Later, when I was 7 years old, my father initiated there was a war, but the money was not enough. In order to gain the support of local businessmen, my father accepted my mother and brought us to the castle. The war lasted for 2 years. Although it was finally won, it also dragged down my mother's family. I remember my father and mother had a fierce fight that night. When I woke up the next day, my mother had already left with nearly half of my father's booty. I don't know why my mother didn't let me go, maybe because I can get a better education by staying in a noble family. Harry said with a long sigh of relief, his eyes a little red. Gerald didn't know what to say either, so he patted Harry on the shoulder and asked, and then? Later. Harry looked at the ceiling absent-mindedly. The yellow lights made the tavern a little lonely. Later, I did get an education that ordinary people don't have, learning noble etiquette, communication, fighting, every day. I was very busy, but at that time I preferred the way of doing business that my mother taught me, which also made my father, who didn't like me even more, hated me even more. And at that time, I happened to touch the part that my father hated. Compared with me, my father liked my 2 older brothers more. Later, my mother's family heard the news of my mother's death. After my mother died, my father looked at me. It also became extraordinarily indifferent. When my two older brothers bullied me, they also turned a blind eye. Later, when I became an adult, my father gave me a noble status at will and sent me to this place. In a remote place, I think my father may hope that I will never go back in my life, but I didn't expect my father to start a war again this time, and even the last bit of my family was picked up. Alas! Gerald poured 2 glasses of ale, and Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com handed Harry a glass and said, "Why not refuse?" "I can't refuse, it only takes half a day from Rock City to West Asia Village. If I refuse, I think my 2 brothers will be very happy to have another piece of territory, even if it is worthless." Harry took a sip of wine. There was helplessness in his breath. Gerald drank a glass of ale in one breath, slammed the quilt on the table and said, "Listen to Harry, I will help you solve this riot of wolves, but I have too few people. I need recruit suitable warriors in your village. I hope you can agree." This is what Gerald has always wanted to try. Gerald tried to recruit local farmers a few days ago, but the system indicated that the recruitment conditions were insufficient. Gerald's special question, the system didn't answer it, it just indicated that the conditions were insufficient, so Gerald wanted to know if self-recruitment would require the permission of the local ruler to recruit like in Viking conquest. "I agree with your request, Gerald. As long as you can give them a suitable settlement fee, I believe that there will be excellent young men joining your army. The wolves of the maple leaf forest depend on you. I'm tired, so let's close the business today. Recruitment conditions are fulfilled. You have gained the friendship and trust of the local ruler, and you can recruit local farmers on your own. Self-recruitment location, West Asia Village. The corresponding troop tree is being matched. The matching is complete, and the current West Asian Village troop tree distribution is, mercenary. The recruitment fee is, 2 silver K. The settlement fee is given according to the local situation. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum hum hum, hungry and hungry." Gerald smiled, as expected, then the future source of troops will also be available. Ha 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 ha. The happy Gerald laughed wildly in his heart and walked out of the tavern. The 2 Nord recruits outside the tavern saw Gerald greet him respectfully, "Sir. Come with me." "Yes, my lord." Before the sun had completely set, Gerald took 2 Nord recruits and started recruiting farmers in the village of West Asia. Bankrupt farmers, idlers, and gangsters are Gerald's first choice. In the end, Gerald found the person he needed at the cost of 50 silver coins. 10 farmers with sticks. At the moment of being recruited by Gerald, an inexplicable force swam over the 10 farmers for a while, and then the 10 farmers were full of loyalty like soldiers summoned from the system. He bowed his head and greeted, "Sir." 10 farmers holding wooden sticks lined up and bowed their heads to greet Gerald respectfully, "Sir, good night." Their eyes were filled with the same loyalty and enthusiasm as the soldiers summoned by the system. Gerald looked at the troops in front of him with satisfaction, and nodded with satisfaction. This was a start, an opportunity for Gerald to truly rise. If he only relied on the troops rewarded by the system, then Gerald would not be able to quickly pull up a team. There is only a team, but with the self-recruitment, he no longer has to worry about the source of the soldiers. He waved his hand and ordered, "Tonight, everyone should go back to their own homes to rest. Tomorrow morning, gather by the small bridge outside the village. Disband." Clear. The system gave them a reward for their loyalty to Gerald. Although they had no experience in fighting before, they were not afraid of fighting because of their high morale. Gerald took 2 Nord recruits and returned to the tavern. The tavern was empty, and Harry went to rest. Gerald went to the rooms of several soldiers to check the injury of the guerrilla shooter. Gerald came in and struggled to get up to greet him, but Gerald hurriedly stopped him, "Lie down in peace, heal up quickly, we are about to start fighting again." The Visaya guerrilla shooter just gave up. He didn't try to get up. He could only answer weakly, "I would like to die for the adults." "Okay, okay, have a good rest, I'm just here to see." Gerald was a little helpless. The soldiers were all good, but they were too respectful, causing Gerald to be speechless. After an inspection, it was found that the injury suffered by the guerrilla shooter of Visaya had recovered very quickly. As long as he had another day off tomorrow, he would probably be able to recover. Close the door and leave. Back in his room, Gerald tried the feel of the short bow, pulled the string, and took out an arrow from the conical quiver. The arrows were not on the table. Gerald smiled contentedly, packed up, and planned to sleep. Early in the morning, Xia village woke up from the haze. The villagers all got up and started busy for the day's livelihood, or gathered together in groups of 3s and 2s to chat about interesting things outside the home. Dong dong dong. "Sir, it's time to get up." There was a knock on the door. "Well." Gerald stretched on the bed and said, "Come in." Sitting on the edge of the bed, rubbed his eyes, thinking that the day and night were turned upside down in the past, but now it was to survive, and he didn't know whether this change was good or bad. Gerald was a little at a loss. "My lord, it's time to go." Perhaps seeing that Gerald was in a low mood, the Nord recruit reminded him in a low voice. "Papa." He patted his face. Gerald woke up from his dazed emotions, put on his clothes and equipment, and his eyes became firm again. "No matter what happened in the past, now I just want to live a wonderful life. Let's go." "Yes." "Hey, good morning, Harry." Went down to the pub and said hello to Harry, who was having breakfast. "You are going to the maple leaf forest now?" "Well, but there shouldn't be a hunt for wolves today. I have to check their range first." "Is that so? I'll leave it to you then. Do not worry." "Don't you want to eat?" "Don't eat, my people are still waiting for me." "Bon voyage." Gerald nodded and walked out of the tavern. "Phew, it's comfortable." He straightened his hands and looked up at the sun, which was not dazzling, and the fresh air unique to another world. Gerald took 2 Nord recruits to the meeting place. Before he got to the bridge, Gerald saw the peasants and soldiers sitting together from a distance. He walked over quickly and drank, "Assemble." Seeing Gerald, the peasants and soldiers who were still sitting on the ground quickly got up and stood in line, shouting at the same time, "Sir!" Task assignment name, Hunting Wolves. Mission goal, the wolves entrenched in the periphery of the maple leaf forest must eliminate at least 60% of the number of wolves. Quantity, unknown. Quest reward, depending on the degree of completion according to the order issued by the system. Gerald instructed, "Today we are going to explore the specific location of the wolves and their range of activities in the periphery of the maple leaf forest. 2 Nord recruits will lead 5 people respectively, remember. If you encounter a wolf pack and show an attacking stance to you, quickly evacuate, understand? No." The 10 peasant soldiers and 2 Nord recruits who heard the order put their left fists on their chests at the same time, stomped their feet, lowered their heads and shouted, "Understood, sir." "Very good, then let's go." Gerald waved his hand. "Die for adults." As soon as the voice fell, 2 Nord recruits and 10 peasants followed Gerald to the maple leaf forest. "Stop! Fix up and rest." After walking for a while, Gerald ordered everyone to fix it. Gerald with the troops ordered everyone to rest and rectify when they approached the maple leaf forest. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. There were no outsiders anyway, so he took out a pot from the inventory and prepared to cook a pot of wheat porridge. The combat ability will also drop sharply. After all, it is the morning, and he has not eaten for a whole night. If he does not eat in the morning, Gerald does not know how much fighting power the soldiers can still have. Everyone sat on the ground, and 2 peasants and soldiers consciously went to pick up firewood. Gerald called 2 more peasants and soldiers to take the pot to scoop up the water, then set the pot with a stone, took out a bag of wheat and a few salted fish, chopped the salted fish with a sword, and poured half a bag of wheat into it. In the pot, the peasants and soldiers who had finished their busy work and collected firewood also came back and made a fire to cook porridge. After doing this, Gerald also sat down and rested beside a tree. Just to make up for a nap, he stretched his waist, leaned against the tree, and fell asleep slowly. Sir. Well, what's wrong? The food is ready, let's eat some. A farmer and soldier handed him a bowl of wheat porridge. Gerald took it, took a sip, and said with a bitter face, "Wow, it's so salty, the salted fish produced by the system, it's really too salty." "Thanks, let's go eat too." "Okay, my lord." The peasant and soldier bowed and retired to eat. After the meal, a few peasants and soldiers cleaned the kitchen utensils, and Gerald put them in the inventory. Crack, snap, snap. Gerald clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention, and said, "Okay, remember what I told you, prepare to explore along the periphery of Maple Leaf Forest, and Nord recruits will lead the team." Action! Understood. The soldiers shouted in unison. For collections, for recommendations, for follow-up readings, for tickets, the author of GMO Kuonai, if you don't pay attention, it will be gone, hum, hungry and hungry. Swipe, the soldiers crossed Gerald and stepped into the Maple Leaf Forest. With one hand behind his back, Gerald watched them quietly, waiting patiently for them to send back news. Looking through the Maple Leaf Forest, 2 Nord recruits led 5 peasants and soldiers to explore from 2 different directions. There were no special discoveries along the way, and there were dense shrubs growing between the trees, which brought great inconvenience to exploration. Suddenly a leading Nord recruit squatted down, looked around for a while, and said, "Come this way." The rest of the peasants followed him to a deeper place. There are several striking footprints, wolf footprints. The other group of people did not find any trace of the wolf, but found a logging camp. There were no humans in the camp. When the wolves wounded people a few days ago, Harry had already ordered the villagers not to enter the Maple Leaf Forest. Although people went to the camp, there was still a pleasant surprise. When the Nord recruits were exploring the camp, they found that there were a lot of logging axes left in the warehouse. They immediately ordered each farmer and soldier to replace the wooden stick with a logging axe. Although the damage of the logging axe is not high, the damage caused by the iron is far higher than that of the wooden stick. The shotgun is replaced by the gun. If you don't look carefully, except for the combat experience, it seems that this is a Nord recruit team. On the other side, the Nord recruit led the team through a bush, and his line of sight suddenly became clear. "Squat down." Before he could explain, the Nord recruit whispered. The scenery in front of them caught the eyes of the Nord recruits. This is a small lake. The area of the lake is not large, but there are more than a dozen of their targets around the lake. Wolf. The Nord recruits looked around the lake. On the mound on the right, they found a long and narrow hole. Several little wolves were playing at the hole. On the mound, a unique wolf was basking in the sun. It has a coat color snow white, which is different from any wolf in the pack. The mild sunlight shone on the white wolf's soft fur, and it was immediately incomparably beautiful. The Nord recruit was a little dazed for a moment. This wolf is so beautiful. Suddenly, the white wolf who was lying on his back in the sun stopped licking his front paws, stood up, his nose twitched, as if he smelled something. The Nord recruits, who were observing the white wolf, also noticed the behavior of the white wolf, and immediately ordered, "Retreat." Everyone slowly withdrew from the bushes, pulled a peasant soldier and instructed, "Remember this place, this should be the wolf's nest." "Understood, Captain." "You can go back and report to Lord Gerald." "Let's go. By the way, remember to leave a mark along the way." "Understood, Captain." Although he has repeatedly stressed that the situation is not right to retreat immediately, Gerald is still worried and waits at the entrance of the Maple Leaf Forest. This time he did not lead the action, because he felt that some things should be done by his subordinates, rather than doing everything himself. This is a kind of learning to be superior. Although he knew that this expedition would not be too dangerous, and he had given orders to retreat immediately in case of danger, Gerald was still a little worried. "It's been more than an hour, why haven't you come back yet?" Just as he was thinking about it, hurried footsteps came from the entrance. Gerald stood up. "Sir. Times 6 come back, what did you find?" Gerald was a little puzzled when he saw that every peasant soldier had an axe on his back. "Sorry sir. I didn't find any trace of the wolves. However, my subordinates found a logging camp and found 17 logging axes in the warehouse. The team led by my subordinates has replaced them with logging axes, and there are 12 left. In a logging camp. Good job, hard work, rest on the spot and wait for the other team to come back." "Yes, my lord." Gerald stood by the tree, lowered his head to think about something, and muttered to himself, "Camp, logging axe, it should be able to do something." After waiting for another half an hour, another team finally came back. "Sir, we have found the wolf's nest." The Nord recruit panted and said to Gerald. "I found it." "Very good, hard work. Attention everyone, the wolf's nest has been found, and the battle will start tomorrow. Today we will rest in the logging camp." He waved again, called the Nord recruit who found the camp, and said, "Find 2 from your squad to bring the shortstop shooters." "No, you bring 2 people to bring the shortstop shooters." Considering the guerrilla shooter didn't know the peasant soldiers, so Gerald still let the Nord recruits go in person. Thinking about it, the guerrilla shooter should almost recover from his injuries. The sun is high. A peasant soldier who knew the way took Gerald and others to the logging camp. It was noon, and the dazzling light brought the scorching temperature to make people uncomfortable, especially in this maple leaf forest, where the dense vegetation locked in a lot of temperature, making people feel like they were in a steamer. Wiping the sweat on his forehead, Gerald asked the peasant soldier who was leading the way, "How far is it?" "Too hot." Gerald couldn't take it anymore. "Hey, my lord, it's almost there." The peasant soldier looked more tired than Gerald. After walking along the road opened by the lumberjacks for a while, Gerald and his party finally arrived at the lumbering camp. The first thing Gerald did when he entered the logging camp was to run to the well dug for the convenience of water, fill a bucket of water, and wash his face happily. Shaking off the water droplets on his face, he exhaled, "Phew, it's comfortable, you all come to wash too. Oh, long live your lord." The soldiers shouted and ran to the well to fetch water, but they didn't plan to just wash their faces. They took off their clothes and looked like they were going to take a shower. Gerald wasn't interested in watching it. Help the big men to spy, and plan to see what else is in the logging camp. Wash them all quickly, and don't wash the water into the well. Whoever washes into the well will be vigilant tonight. Haha, you reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Got it, my lord. I checked the warehouse, and sure enough, as the Nord recruit said, there are logging axes on the tool racks, and the spacious warehouse is very empty. It seems that Harry has already ordered the wood to be transported away, and only the wood is still crushed on the ground. There are traces of passing, there are torches on the wall, but they are extinguished. After checking it out, Gerald walked out of the warehouse. Seeing that the soldiers who were taking a bath had already packed up, Gerald called them to the warehouse and equipped them with a logging axe. "My lord. We're back." At this time, the Nord recruit who went to the West Asia village to pick up the Vijaya guerrilla shooter pushed open the door of the warehouse and walked in, followed by the Vijaya guerrilla shooter and 2 peasant soldiers. "My lord." The Visaya guerrilla archer walked up to Gerald and bowed his head in a respectful greeting. "This is what Sir Harry asked me to pass on to you." After that, he handed over a letter. "It's good to come, I'll see you tomorrow. I would like to die for the Lord." Gerald nodded and said, "Go and rest, your injury should heal by night." After speaking, he lowered his head and opened the envelope. "Dear Gerald, my friend. I think you should have discovered my logging camp. The logging axe left in the warehouse is a gift from me. Please accept it. I should have told you that night, but I didn't expect my emotions that night to get out of control and I forgot. Fortunately, your troops found the camp, and I took the opportunity to inform you. You have a friend, Harry Manton." "So it is." Gerald was still a little puzzled, why all the things in the logging camp were transported away, but the logging axe was not transported away. "You must know that any iron tool is not cheap, let alone it can be used as a weapon. Timber axe." Time passed by like a white horse, and it arrived at dusk without attention. Under Gerald's arrangement, the two Nord recruits simply taught the peasants and soldiers the skills of using axe, so that they could improve their fighting ability a little. "Drink." "Ha! The peasants are training." Gerald was not idle either. He simply made a few archery targets, and practiced bow and arrow shooting for an afternoon with the short bow he bought from Harry. He achieved very little, and only received the proficiency reward prompted by the 5-point system. It seems, the only way to grow is to fight. Gerald rubbed his sore wrist. "Put away bows and arrows. Okay, let's rest, and ask 2 people to cook." Gerald took out half a bag of wheat and a few salted fish left over from the morning from the inventory and put it on the ground. "Understood, my lord. Everyone rests, you still have you to cook." A Nord recruit paid 2 peasants to let them cook. "Yes." During the training, a farmer challenged the Nord recruits, the Nord recruits took over, and Gerald was attracted to watch them fight with a laugh. "Then you are together, the Nord recruits, 10 of you. 1 team, there are rewards for winning." Oh. The scene became lively. The 2 Nord recruits who heard the reward also started to get serious. Back to back, they slashed with the wooden axe cut by Gerald, and each cut a farmer to the ground and stepped forward to fight. And then the battle ended quickly in a one-sided form. After all, they were soldiers of the Nord Kingdom, and their folk customs were sturdy. Even the First Order arms were not something that ordinary farmers could defeat. The victorious Nord recruits clapped their hands to celebrate, and came to Gerald's side to invite rewards. Gerald gave each of them a dozen bronze coins, which attracted everyone's cheers. In the midst of the excitement, the farmer who was cooking ran over and said, "Sir, it's time to eat." "Understood." Gerald responded, stepped forward and clapped his hands, and said, "Guys, please stop, you can enjoy sweet food." "Yes, my lord. Let's go, let's eat." Long live adults. Gerald walked to the place where the rice was served, and looked at the food. The plump wheat had absorbed enough water and there were still a few pieces of salted fish in it. After taking a bowl of rice, Gerald sat on the stump of a tree, cut a pair of chopsticks and started eating. Bah, it's salty. The soldiers also filled their meals one by one, sat together in 2s and 3s, and sighed while pulling the rice. "Your lord is so generous, I've never seen so much salt when eating before." The emotion of the recruited farmer, after speaking, aroused a lot of approval. Hearing everyone's talk, Gerald smiled shyly, he just forgot to buy food. After dinner, it was already night. Gerald arranged for each of the Nord recruits to take 3 people on duty at night, and was ready to go to bed. There is still a battle to be fought tomorrow. The moon sets and the sun rises, and it's a new day. Gerald, who woke up early, was still sighing about his life. Thinking about the life that was upside down today and the life that went to bed early and woke up early today, hey, it's already mixed with 5 flavors. After waking everyone up, Gerald came out of the warehouse and cleared his throat and said, "Team 1, we must have 2 spears to cut wooden sticks this morning. Team 2, go collect them now. Throwing pebbles, do you understand?" "Understood, my lord." A dozen soldiers responded in unison. "Then go ahead, guys." Gerald formed a team of 10 farmers last night, and the captains were naturally the two Nord recruits. Taking into account the habit of the wolves to be nocturnal, Gerald set the time to launch the attack at noon, when the weather was the hottest, and the wolves would definitely rest near the wolf's nest. After making arrangements, Gerald went to an open space to practice bow and arrow. Time flies. The second team that went out to find the pebbles has returned, packed the pebbles into bags, and went to help the first team to harden the sharpened spears. This is what Gerald explained. When everything is clarified, the time will pass. Gerald came to the soldiers and distributed a bag of pebbles to each of them. Set off. It was found that the Nord recruits in the wolf's nest were leading the way, and Gerald and the others followed behind. The weather was hot and they had a hard time walking, but the soldiers had no complaints under the blessing of loyalty. The problem is Gerald, he overestimating his endurance, he gritted his teeth and held on. Gerald ordered, "Speed up and make repairs when you are 2 miles away from the target." Hearing the order, the soldiers quickened their pace, and Gerald gritted his teeth to keep up. Finally, when Gerald heard what the Nord recruit said, he sat on the ground, poured a bag of water on his face, and ordered repairs. Everyone rested, and Gerald also recovered. The decisive battle time has come. Hold your breath, aim, shoot. With a whoosh, a sharp arrow was shot from Gerald's hand, who was standing behind the tree, followed by a tragic wolf howl, followed by another sound in the next second, and the arrow of the Visaya partisan shooter also hit one. The wild wolf that was only resting, the battle started, and the large wolf pack with more than a dozen adult wolves reacted instantly, and a wolf howl came from the long and narrow cave. Hunting time. The wolves began to run at the command of howling. Arrange. Seeing the wolves moving, Gerald ordered, drawing his bow quickly. The soldiers obeyed the order and lined up in a semicircle with their backs against a big tree, their spears stood upright, and they took out the prepared pebbles. Whoosh, whoosh, 2 arrows shot out again. 2 Nord recruits commanded their respective cues, smash. The pebbles were quickly thrown out of the hands of the farmers. Reading www.youcanshoot.com. Don't want to be accurate, just aim at the place where there are many wolves and hit it. Soon the wolves were approaching, and the pebble still had some effect. It knocked a few heads out, but that's all. Change the spear. The first to approach are a few pioneer wolves. When hunting, they usually rush in front, and the rest of the wolves hunt around. Prick. After the battle, the farmers' spears stabbed out and stabbed a few vanguard wolves fiercely. Don't worry about them, hold it down, make up for it. The farmers quickly used their axes to eliminate a few vanguard wolves, but at this time the formation was in chaos. The real chaos is here. Gerald quickly shot a few arrows, threw down the bow and arrow, drew out his long sword and stepped forward to melee. He killed the wolf, and killed it on the first day. Kill. Gerald let out a low roar, stepped forward quickly, and stabbed a wolf who was biting the farmer with his sword. Farmer, found another wild wolf. The roar, the sound of axe chopping meat one after another, a wolf howl came from the rear of the battle. The wolves with few remaining wolves quickly retreated, and the wolves who lost many adult wolves were afraid. My lord, they're going to escape. The Visaya partisan shooter shouted at Gerald. Those who can still stand up continue to smash rocks, and the shooter continues to shoot. Aim at the alpha wolf, kill. Gerald quickly ordered, rushed over, picked up the bow and arrow and shot. The wolves dispersed, leaving only the cubs in the wolf's nest screaming miserably. When the wolves dispersed, the alpha wolf was caught on fire and fell on the way to escape. It's not a game after all. Gerald murmured lowly, looking at the farmers who fell to the ground and could never get up.